You know that moment when someone casually asks about money, and suddenly your chest tightens just a little. You smile, you answer lightly, but inside, something feels guarded, almost like you're bracing yourself without realizing it. I've noticed we can talk openly about almost everything else. Relationships, stress, even our failures feel easier to explain out loud. But money somehow feels heavier, like it carries judgment with it. Sometimes I honestly wonder when that shift happened. When money stopped being something we talk through and started being something we whisper about. And maybe today, we can pause and question that together. What if the most uncomfortable money conversations feel heavy because they're actually about something deeper than dollars? Maybe they're about fear, identity, or the quiet pressure to look like we have it all together. And that's why they linger in our minds long after the conversation ends. Hey, I'm Bella, and this is Money Talk with Bella. This isn't about quick tips or financial pressure. It's a space to talk honestly about money and life. Because money is never just money, especially when real people are involved. Today, we're not here to solve anything or fix our finances in 10 minutes. We're just sitting with what money brings up in us, in our relationships, our families, and how we see ourselves. If you're craving clarity without pressure, stay with me until the end. Money looks practical on the surface, like it's just numbers and decisions. But emotionally, it's heavy-loaded with shame, pride, fear, and constant comparison. Most of us aren't reacting to money itself. We're reacting to what it makes us feel about who we are. There's this quiet pressure to look financially fine all the time, even when we're confused, uncertain, or honestly just exhausted from thinking about money. So we smile, nod, and pretend we've got it figured out. And somehow, not knowing how to talk about money starts to feel like a personal failure. Like everyone else got the manual except you. Even though, if we're honest, almost no one was ever taught how to do this. I remember avoiding my bank account not because the numbers were scary, but because of what they made me feel about myself. It felt like opening an app meant opening a judgment. I've caught myself measuring my worth in quiet moments, especially when friends talked about milestones I hadn't reached yet. Suddenly, money felt like a scoreboard instead of a tool. Sometimes money conversations made me go quiet, not because I had nothing to say, but because I wasn't sure which version of myself felt safe to show. Silence felt easier than explaining. Over time, I realized I wasn't anxious about money itself. I was anxious about what it seemed to say about my life, about where I was, and where I thought I should be by now. A lot of us didn't learn about money through calm conversations. We learned through silence, stress, or moments where survival mattered more than understanding. So, before we judge ourselves for feeling confused, it helps to remember where those feelings were shaped. We also carry invisible rules about money from family, culture, and past experiences. Rules about what success should look like, what's embarrassing to admit, and when it's safer to stay quiet. Most of us never chose these rules, but they still shape our decisions. So when money feels emotional, messy, or overwhelming, it's not a personal failure. It's what happens when human experiences meet financial decisions. Understanding that can be the first moment we stop fighting ourselves. Right now, money probably represents something deeper than numbers. For some of us, it feels like safety. For others, it feels like pressure, freedom, or even proof that we're doing life right. When you think about money, notice whose voice shows up first in your head. Maybe it's a parent, a culture, a past mistake, or an old expectation you never agreed to. Those voices quietly shape how safe or tense money feels. And here's the honest question worth sitting with. What might change if money conversations felt less like judgment and more like understanding? Sometimes clarity doesn't come from answers, but from being kinder to ourselves. We don't need to answer any of those questions right now. There's no test, no deadline, and nothing to prove in this moment. Sometimes the most honest thing we can do is pause instead of pushing for clarity. Just noticing what comes up inside you is already doing the work. The thoughts, the tension, the quiet reactions, they all matter. Awareness is a form of progress most people underestimate. Let it sit without fixing it. Let it breathe without judging it. This pause is not avoidance. It's giving yourself space to be human with money. If this conversation felt familiar, it's because you're not the only one carrying these thoughts quietly. Sometimes the most honest thing we can do is simply recognize that money has been shaping us long before we noticed. If you want more spaces like this, liking the video helps this honesty reach people who need it. Subscribe, share it with someone you trust. And if you feel ready, tell me in the comments, what does money feel like in your life right now? This is Money Talk with Bella, a space for clarity-based growth without pressure or performance. Thank you for sitting with me, because money is never just money.